Throughout his 20-year history, Mario has performed all kinds of gestures. He punches, he points, he shoots, and of course, he jumps. But there's one other gesture. It used to pop up in all kinds of Mario games, but its most famous appearance is in Super Mario 64. When the player completes a level and collects the golden star, Mario spins around and performs a great big peace sign to the camera, a V for victory, if you will. Except, Super Mario 64 wasn't just the most iconic use of the peace sign, it was also the last. For the next 20 years, the peace sign never showed up in a single Mario game. It was only in 2017 that it snuck its way in once more. But why the gap? Was it just a big coincidence? No, not at all. Nintendo actually banned the victory sign from every single Mario game. For 20 years, it was completely forbidden. And the reason why is pretty surprising. So what happened? What's with the ban? Well, it all comes down to the father of Mario, Shigeru Miyamoto. Back in the 1980s, Miyamoto was an aspiring industrial designer, like steel and metal and wood and graphs. But thanks to some family connections, he ended up landing a job here at Nintendo. A few years later, he would design a game called Donkey Kong. Originally, it was set to feature Popeye characters, but Nintendo couldn't get the rights. So at the last minute, Shigeru Miyamoto had to come up with replacements, completely original characters that Nintendo didn't need to buy the rights for. Miyamoto came up with 3 of them: an ape named Donkey Kong, a princess called Pauline, and this guy, an old carpenter named Mario. He was old, kind of grubby, and not very marketable. But against all the odds, Donkey Kong ended up being a massive hit. It really took America by storm. And that meant only one thing: Mario had to change. So soon, this Mario guy started popping up in a huge number of games, from the arcade to the living room to your pocket. And pretty quickly, the character of Mario ended up being redesigned. Just little by little, he became younger, friendlier, and more colourful. And 5 years later, he was barely recognisable as the old carpenter who saved the princess from the Kong. At first, Shigeru Miyamoto didn't mind. In fact, he was the one in charge of a lot of this early art. This was just how things had to be, right? At least that's what Miyamoto thought at first. But as things went on, he got more and more frustrated, until eventually Miyamoto reached his limit. And the final straw, it was this gesture here, the peace sign, also known as the victory sign. So the peace sign actually came from one of Shigeru Miyamoto's friends at Nintendo, a designer called Takashi Tezuka. And Tezuka loved everything that was cute, like those little eyes all over Mario 3's map. They were added by Tezuka. He just couldn't help himself. But that wasn't all that Tezuka added into Mario. Think back to Super Mario World from 1992. When Mario reaches the end of a level in this game, he gives a big peace sign to the camera, to the player. A V for victory, like well done for clearing the level. And when Mario made the jump to 3D, this gesture was copied across, just as it was. When Mario collected a star, he would give that cheesy V for victory to the player. But shortly after Mario 64 was released unto the world, Shigeru Miyamoto made up his mind. Enough was enough. You see, Mario was not a kid's game, at least not according to its creator, Shigeru Miyamoto. He explained once in an interview, "I created Mario when I was 27 years old. At that point in time, he was in no way something that I would feel embarrassed about. I mean, he was already this older guy, like your uncle or something. It was meant to be the kind of game that 18-year-old guys would be able to play together and enjoy." But by 1995, Miyamoto felt as though things had changed. and not for the better. His character was popping up on backpacks and mugs, on TV and in fast food chains. Mario had become too commercial, too commodified. Miyamoto went on. As more entries in the series were added, I feel like because we have more people making the Mario games, younger people on our staff making the games, and outside companies licensing Mario, that as a character, he started going in that kids direction more and more. And even Nintendo marketing began to say, let's position Mario as a character aimed at small children. And it was established. So, Miyamoto was fed up. This wasn't the character he wanted in the world, but by now it felt like too late. Mario had become, in large part, a character and a franchise for children. There wasn't much that Shigeru Miyamoto himself could do. At least that's what he thought at first. But then he had a brainwave. What if there was one tiny little way he could put his foot down and say, enough is enough? And that's where the peace sign ban comes into the picture. Let me explain. Not long after Mario 64 was released, Miyamoto turned up outside Takashi Tezuka's office. The peace sign guy, the creator of Miyamoto's most hated gesture. Miyamoto had only one thing to say to Tezuka. I am banning the peace sign, the victory sign, from the Mario series. From now on, it is no longer allowed. Thank you. And so Tezuka and Nintendo in general listened to Miyamoto's request. They banned the peace sign. By then, Shigeru Miyamoto had a lot of clout within Nintendo, after all. And we can observe this peace sign ban firsthand by examining the games that followed Super Mario 64. The first sequel was Mario Sunshine, and in this game, Nintendo's animators replaced the peace sign with something different. A sort of reach for the sky type animation. Snazzy. Then, a few years later, came Super Mario Galaxy. In this one, when Mario collects a star, he sort of punches upwards, like he's breaking a brick block, almost. And then, finally, in Mario 3D World for the Wii U, this same pose is copied across. A classic, iconic Mario punch. So I'm sure you noticed something in common across all of these three animations. None of them feature the peace sign. But in 2017, things finally changed. So it's hard to know what went on behind the scenes of Mario Odyssey's development. I do know that Shigeru Miyamoto really stepped back this time round. He really wasn't very involved in this game. Either way, something changed. The peace sign ban, the ban that had lasted for over 20 years, well, it was finally relaxed just a little. You see, Mario Odyssey actually does something different from the last games. It picks a random animation to play when Mario collects a moon. Sometimes he'll reach for the sky in reference to Mario Sunshine. Sometimes he'll punch, a tip of the cap to Galaxy and 3D World. And yes, very occasionally he will indeed pull out the classic peace sign. But hold this image in your mind. Keep it there, because it's a very rare sight. Notice this gesture is absent from the box art. It's not on Nintendo's website either. Because while the ban has certainly been loosened, I think we've got a long way to go before we get back to how it was in the 1980s, before this peace sign ban was put into place. Hey, I'm Thomas. I hope you enjoyed that video. You can subscribe for more like this. Plus, if you want to support more of these videos every week, then you can donate to me on Patreon. $2 a month gets you access to my exclusive patron-only Discord server. Either way, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.